Ladies and gentlemen, let's Gaming video. Apparently resolution does matter, well, at least according to consumers. Nielsen, who are of course a well-respected analyst firm, asked customers a very simple question when they were purchasing their new console. That would be the Xbox One, the Wii U, and of course the PlayStation 4. Why are you buying this system? What are the reasons that you have come to make this decision? You know, what spurred you to make this choice? And for the PlayStation 4, the number one reason, believe it or not, was actually a better resolution. There are a myriad of other reasons behind it. Of course, the Blu-ray player, game library, faster processing power, and what family wants. With the Xbox One, it was brand innovative features, faster processing power, exclusive games / content, and fun factor. For the Wii U, fun factor, better for kids, price / value, better compatibility, and exclusive games / content. So focusing on the PS4 and the Xbox One for a moment, these were owners focused on 13+. So it's quite interesting because developers have been telling us for some time that resolution doesn't matter, but as I'm sure you'll know from any online forum, resolution kind of does, because what people see, I personally think, how I see how a lot of people react anyway, how I'm interpreting it, is that let's say you see two versions of the same game. Let's say it's a game like, oh, I don't know, let's think of an example, Dragon Age Inquisition, and you're going to pay 45 Great British Pounds or $60 or what have you for that game on the PS4, and exactly the same price for the Xbox One. Mentally, you're going to say to yourself, well, hey, if I want to play this, I'm probably going to want the prettier version. It's pretty standard. Now, admittedly, this isn't always the case. In fact, sometimes the Xbox One version runs at the same resolution, or in other situations, yes, the PS4 has a slightly higher resolution, but the Xbox One may have a slightly faster frame rate, as we found out. But regardless, this is just how people associate it. So Microsoft obviously are probably not too happy about that response from customers. But the other answers from the PlayStation 4 faithful, so in other words the Blu-ray player, the game library, and so on and so forth, those answers are definitely something Microsoft do want customers to say. Now, I know you're going to be saying, well, why the hell would they want people to say those answers? I mean, how does it benefit Microsoft? Well, those are areas where Microsoft can challenge Sony, because if you were to look at, let's just take the middle of the road one, the game library. Microsoft can fight Sony on the game library area, and they could certainly fight them on what family wants as well. I mean, those are definitely areas where Microsoft can release good games, they can have good deals going, they can have great digital content. They can easily fight Sony on those areas. Similarly, Sony can also fight Microsoft when it comes to exclusive games and content, and they can also fight Microsoft on, let's say, innovative features, as well as brand. Remember, brand being the primary reason that people are buying the Xbox One. In other words, Xbox One is doing rather well simply on the fact that it's associated with Microsoft, and the fact that, of course, the Xbox 360 was before it. But there is also some good news for Microsoft that isn't really related quite to this, but it's certainly in the same ballpark. So last year, the PlayStation 4 was attracting a lot of former Xbox fans. In other words, almost 60%, 59% of new PlayStation 4 owners had previously owned an Xbox 360, while only 43% of Xbox One owners made the jump from the PS3. So you could see how that kind of works in mathematics. In other words, Sony were converting more Xbox faithful rather than the other way round. However, Nielsen have actually found out now that more Xbox One owners than PS4 were jumping without having owned the last generation console. This is a very difficult situation than the PlayStation 4 when it was first released. So when the PS4 was first released, people were picking up the system even if they had not owned, say, a PS3 or an Xbox 360. They may have been new gamers, they may have been primarily PC gamers, what have you. That's what people were buying. Now that's not quite what's happening. People are still, of course, doing that, but you're getting people who are now buying Xbox One more for their first console, or for their last console since the previous generation. In other words, if they skip the Xbox 360 or the PS3, they're more likely now to be buying the Xbox One for whatever reason. Now, whatever the heck that reason is unknown. It could be because Microsoft are doing a better job of attracting casual gamers. It could be that Microsoft are doing better at possibly attracting PC owners. It could be Microsoft are attracting users who are interested in Kinect or the multimedia functionality. It could be a billion different reasons. Or it could also be the fact that, once again, going back to the brand reason. In other words, people know Microsoft, they know them from PCs, they know them from Office, they know them from God knows what, and this is what they're associating with, and they just say, hey, I'm just going to buy the Xbox. It could also be the games as well, let's face it. So, what does this actually mean for you as gamers? Well, it's a bit difficult to know. Sony have sold 18.1 million PS4s. Microsoft, we don't know how many. The last, at least as far as I'm aware, the last time Microsoft have updated us in sales figures was 10 million, or actually almost 10 million back in November. But since then, it hasn't actually given us any updates. This is back in November, and it's actually shipped as well, so those aren't sold through to customers. So just how many has actually been really sold of the Xbox One, particularly since November, because obviously you had the Christmas period and now it's January, February, and of course the Xbox One is also doing rather well because of the price drop. So what does all of that mean to you and I? Well, very little. The fact of the matter is, you're getting analysts who are predicting the Xbox One is going to lose. You're getting analysts who are predicting the PS4 is going to eventually be even with the Xbox One, and so on and so forth. The reality is, no one really knows the situation, because even if you worked at Microsoft, you don't know what Sony are putting out. Even if you were able to know all of the release schedule for all of the different systems, you still don't really 100% know how the market are going to react. There could be pay cuts, there could be problems with the online services of one of them in the future. They could figure out that, there's a batch of systems that are faulty and therefore there's bad publicity. A billion different things. If you asked anyone when the PS3 was, let's say, a year old, will it catch up to the Xbox 360? Will it even be a patch on the Xbox 360 in terms of sales? Everyone would just look at you as if you were crazy. They would say, no, not even slightly. There's no way the PS3 can match the Xbox 360. When the PS3 was released, the online wasn't that great, to be totally honest. Microsoft had basically smashed it since the Xbox 360 was launched with Xbox Live. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty damn solid. The systems as a whole, yes, there were some problems. You can argue Microsoft lost a lot of ground with the Red Ring of Death's problems. But even so, no one really thought that Sony would be able to catch up. And yet, they did. Not only did they catch up, but they managed to launch several very successful new IPs, for example, Uncharted and Last of Us, and a couple of others besides, and they managed to solidify a fairly reasonably good, well, at least in my opinion anyway, a pretty good online service, and so on. In other words, it's barely a year since the systems have been out. It's far too early to call what system is really going to do well. And I say barely a year because I don't really count just prior to Christmas, because those are launch games and so on. So I'm really talking about, some momentum time here. There's not really been that much time for either system to really either reach its peak or for developers to really understand what's going on with the systems, or indeed, you know, some of the games are actually being worked on. Like Sony, for example, have not even released, you know, the new Uncharted, and you've got, of course, Tomb Raider, and you've got Halo, and all of these different games from the different developers. So all we can do is just wait. So the biggest thing that I can suggest to all of you, the most important, the most vital, the most crucial, the most critical, is just kill zombies and be happy. Anyway, with that said, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.